Morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is my name. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Tuesday morning, the 14th of April 2026. We do come to you live on a beautiful, bright, and sunny morning in Kampala as things stand. Bright and sunny morning in Kampala. Apologies. Okay. Looks like right at the first time of asking, our microphones are legit. Okay, so in this morning's podcast, we'll be reviewing what transpired last night in the Premier League on match day 32 conclusion, as Manchester United lost by 2-1 against Leeds United. We'll be talking about the UEFA Champions League that gets underway today. Of course, the reverse fixtures of the quarterfinals start today. We start to know who the semi-finalists will be. We start to know who is packing their bags and returning home. So there's a lot at stake, or plenty at stake. There's everything to play for, everything to lose in terms of tonight. We'll talk about the La Liga derby between Barcelona and Atletico de Madrid. We'll talk about Liverpool, who will be entertaining the reigning champions at Paris Saint-Germain, and things like that. So, yeah. But the biggest conversation, one of the biggest conversations as of this morning, is the red card before that was issued to Lisandro Martinez in a match United is a 2-1 loss to Leeds United. Some people think that was a soft one. Others think he should not be doing what he did. So we'll be sharing our thoughts on that as well, in as far as this broadcast is concerned, Okay. Anyways, so plenty of that will formulate the basis of our debate or discussion this morning. Sino Bueno says, hello, my brother. Hello, brother. How are you? I'm doing all right. Thank you so much for joining us this beautiful morning. I hope you're doing okay. I hope you've been great for the last couple of days. For those of you that are just joining us, welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is my name. Good morning, Pedri. Always a pleasure to see you. Good morning, sunshine. You reminded me I was just singing for somebody. My sunshine, that song. I'm happy Raymond and Eddie. How fun isn't here? Okay, guys, kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if it is your first time here. It's the Football Tribe UG channel. Any anything you do, liking, commenting, sharing, everything that you do helps us continue to grow. So I do hope you enjoy the conversation. Today, we'll be publishing or premiering a video, I think, after this broadcast regarding Thomas Partey's plea of not guilty to 2 extra accounts of rep. That video will be coming out, and more. We engage in a bit of a detailed discussion in about 12 minutes in that. So, still praying that my hair will not be dyed. Sino Bueno, what kind of prayer is that? For those of you that are wondering, Sino Bueno made a bet. He's a Chelsea fan. He made a bet with his cousins that if Arsenal win the Premier League title, he will dye his hair red. So that's why he's desperately praying that Arsenal miss out on the Premier League title. I know that Pedri will have a good laugh about it should they squander their opportunity to win a Premier League, to win their first Premier League title in 23 years. So there's all that. But all banter aside, I think we'll just have to wait and see. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of weeks for us to find out who the eventual Premier League champion will be. Is it going to be Arsenal? Is it going to be Manchester City? A lot of people have grown in confidence in thinking that it is going to be Manchester City. A lot of people have grown out of confidence in believing that Arsenal will get it over the line. But only time will tell. We are not tall enough to predict the future beyond the predictions we've already made. Draw Drohobit says, hello everyone. Mayor Lester is here. Hi, Mayor Lester. Good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast. So, where do we start it all? Before we get into the gist of today's conversation, let's start off with the review of Manchester United's 2-1 loss against Leeds United last night as we concluded match day 32 of the Premier League. Plenty of chances for Leeds United, but not many could count. It was only two that were buried by Noah Okafor that eventually decided the tie, while Casemiro's seventh goal of the Premier League this season turned out to be a mere consolation in a game where Manchester United in the second half particularly had opportunities to restore parity but did not make them count because there were two goal line clearances from James Justin and Dominic Calvert-Lewin in a game that saw Manchester United be reduced to 10 men with the sending off of Lisandro Martinez following a VAR review that showed that that the Argentine international had pulled Dominic Calvert-Lewin's hair when they rose high to go for the contention of the ball in the air. So now, away from the missed chances, the red card. Of course, a red card in a game is always a turning point, regardless of whatever minute it comes. But of course, when it comes a bit early, that is even bigger. And for the second game running, Manchester United have had a player sent off. The first was Harry Maguire in their 2-2 draw against FC Bournemouth. That was last week, and this time around it was Lisandro Martinez. Lord's Rivals says, bro, remember me? Do you remember me? Lord's Rivals. I don't know. Unless you've changed your name, I do not remember the name, particularly Lord's Rivals. So kindly remind me in case I'm mistaken. But unless if you change your name, then for me it becomes a bit hard for me to remember you. But if that's not the case, kindly indulge me. Yesterday, we saw Lisandro Martinez be sent off in the second half. Very early on in the second half, he gets his matching orders from the referee Paul Tierney, who was sent to the VAR to review the incident because he had not seen it in real time. And this was as early as the 56th minute of the game. Now, first of all, I saw Jamie Carragher trying to defend this as a soft red card. And in his argument, as shallow as it does feel, at least in my humble opinion, he says that both guys have gone in the air contesting for the ball. He's sort of scampering around and it grabs his hair for only half a second. Now, does it matter if he grabbed his hair for half a second or a full second or a full minute? Does it matter? Well, it may matter for context purposes, but whether you grab his hair for half a second or 2 seconds, it's no less a violent conduct. So, in this particular case, what we've had or what we've witnessed is the referee exercising or implementing the rules to the letter of the law. And for argument's sake, might you add that Paul Tierney had not made much of it in the first place at the first time of it happening. So it happens, and to the referee, who was, by the way, in proximity, but he did not see enough of it in real time to say that's worthy of a red card, not even a yellow card. That's, the point. But VAR was able to spot that. Now, guys, I understand that if it had been not given, we would sit here still and just fire and say maybe it was such a soft pull. But let's not defend something as bad, because pulling an opponent's hair, that's just violent. Just imagine in attempting to get an advantage, we start having players pulling down each other's shots, to distract them. On another day, they will be pulling other more sensitive parts. It's not good. So the mere fact that it's a pull on the hair is for me a red card. It's a red card. We cannot defend it. And I remember as soon as I watched it, I remember that game between Arsenal women and Chelsea women in the reverse fixture of the UEFA Champions League. Arsenal women had won the first leg by 3-1 before losing the reverse fixture, I think, by 1-0. That led goal from Chelsea. But in that particular game, you had an incident where an Arsenal player appears to pull a Chelsea player's hair. And I think, was it Rachel James's sister whose hair was pulled? And I said, no, that should be a red card. That should be reviewed. I do not know why, because in a similar manner of incident, the referee did not see that or enough of it in real time to exercise her authority. Unfortunately for her, the referee, the VAR officials did not bring that to pass judgment. But it does not mean that just because a red card was not given in that one, it makes it the right thing to do. No, it's not right. You cannot pull. And like I said, Jamie Carragher was saying, he's trying to find his balance and what. He would have pulled his shoulder. He would have pulled his jersey, If he had pulled the shoulder, if he had pulled the shirt, I would completely understand, But even when you watch in the moment in itself play out, it's not like Lisandro Martinez has lost balance and he's trying to, grab onto, catch himself onto anything he can find. That's not the case, So that it's a blatant pull on his hair, however slight you may deem it to be. So, because it's a ponytail, bundled at the back of his Calvert-Lewin's head. Right next to it is his shirt. Why does he not pull his shirt? Why does he not grab his behind neck? Why does he not grab his shoulder? But the hair, really? So I, for one, I cannot defend that. It's a blatant red card, and Pedri does agree. I think it's a red card. So basically, for me, that was it. I do not think we can defend it. Now, I understand Manchester United feeling the injustice of certain decisions not going their way. For example, in the build-up to the first goal that Noah Okafor scores, you had what appears to be a foul that was committed by Dominic Calvert-Lewin on I think on Lisandro Martinez. So you had that, you had that, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, is it as blatant? Is it obvious? Because the argument there is that it's an elbow, and therefore it should be reviewed to potentially call it for foul, because the proceeding action from there is that then the goal should not stand. But let's be honest. First of all, is it a clear and obvious error by the referee? Then it is a foul, but it's a yellow card foul, and therefore VAR cannot intervene in that particular incident, So his attempt to play the ball is there, but I'm not going to defend that he does elbow into Lisandro Martinez, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So what that implies is that it should be a foul and is given a yellow card. That argument I entertain. That argument I'm willing to listen to. So therefore, if it is a foul, then it's a free kick and the goal does not stand. Totally agree. But because it's a yellow card offense, VAR is not obligated to intervene to say, you missed a foul here that is worth of a yellow card. Otherwise, we'll have two referees officiating the game. That's why they are limiting the VAR's intervention to only a few incidents or particular parameters, that this is when you ought to intervene. So because it's not a red card offense, that's why VAR possibly does not intervene, and therefore the goal stands. So you can't blame it on Paul Tierney for having not seen the incident to make judgment to say, no, there's been a foul here, and therefore we cannot, the goal won't stand. That if you want to level the decision on Paul Tierney, I agree with you. But also, when you look at the distance between the incident and the referee, it's quite a reasonable distance for the referee not to have been seen it clearly. So if he has not seen it clearly, then it's going to be difficult for him, because what he sees from distance is two players going up in the air trying to compete for the ball. So even though none of them wins it, because it ends up on Noah Okafor, who buries it into the net, it becomes difficult for the referee to say, yeah, we are cutting this one out, So then you would be ruling out a goal on what you're not 100% sure of that you've seen. So basically it was that. So, and because Manchester United felt an injustice in the AFC Bournemouth game, in which they should have been awarded a second penalty, they sort of carry on that into yesterday's game to say, look here, mate, we were hard done by the referee. They believe the red card shouldn't be a red card. I say it is a red card. It's a pull on the hair. If it's a pull on the shirt, I wouldn't care any less. I would be making the same argument. It's not a red card. If the roles were reversed, I'll be making the same incident. Go back to December 5th, 2018. Marouane Fellaini in Manchester United's 2-2 draw against Arsenal at Old Trafford pulled Matteo Guendouzi's hair, and he got away with that one. Was it the right thing to do? No, it wasn't the right thing to do. Just because the red card wasn't issued then, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be given this time round. Now, here's an unfortunate bit, or where it becomes maybe painful for Manchester United, is that in this very season, you had Manchester City, as they beat up against Fulham at the Etihad Stadium, Calvin Bassey appeared to pull Antoine Semenyo's hair in the area, and that was not called for review for him to be issued a red card. It should have been a red card. Why? Calvin Bassey pulls Antoine Semenyo's hair. There should be no room where players are permitted to pull another's hair. This is not a ring fight. No, it's not. So, as much as you want to argue against the red card, you can argue on the inconsistencies in awarding it as a red card foul for those precedents that I've highlighted for you, but it doesn't make it less of a foul. It does not mean that it's not a red card incident. I would want to believe that it is the pitch mole here trying to self-correct, that they reviewed the incident in the Fulham game against Manchester City and said that should have been a red card, but you did not give it. VAR, how did you not see this? Next anything similar happens and a player is pulling the other's hair, it's a straight red card. I believe they are self-correcting. I have criticized them a good number of times to make the argument that oftentimes I've found they are officiating wanting why, questioning whether they review incidents, major incidents in games, and draw to conclusions in terms of self-correcting, because it's because of the inconsistencies and different application of the law that we then feel hard done by. The one thing you and I can agree on is that referee make mistakes, that there are things they are not going to see in real time, that VAR cannot intervene in each and everything. So, with that appreciation of that, referees must be sharper. But in potential red card incidents and penalty incidents where VAR refuses to intervene for whatever justification they may give, that's where we ought to call them out. And that's why I'm saying for Calvin Bassey, it should have been a red card. But just because they missed giving it out that time does not mean that they ignore giving it out this time round when they've been able to spot the incident. Anyways, Manchester United, I do not think it is the red card that refuses you to win the game, because you are 2-0 down by the time the red card comes. Does it disadvantage you? Yes, but that's your own making. You made your bed, so lay in it. 2, Um, Man United overall, by the way, looked good even after going down to 10 men. They sort of retreated into this back three where you had Luke Shaw, Nusa Mazorui, and Lenny Yoro. And they're doing things well. Bruno Fernandes dropped in a bit deep to help with the ball carry, So he really did well. But look at the first goal. What is Manuel Ugarte doing? Because he goes on to track Jaden Boko, but he does not make the block to deny him from bringing in the cross. And it does not appear like he was not there on time enough. He just does not make the attempt to block the cross. So the cross comes in. Lisandro Martinez is missed it. Of course, there's a foul on him by Calvert-Lewin. But look at Noah Okafor when he buries that ball into the corner. Amadou Diallo is basically physically present in the box, but is completely absent-minded in terms of defending. You see, defending is like issuing justice. You must not just appear to be defending. You must actually be seen to be defending. So a lot of times I see these players, oftentimes offensive players, get themselves into defensive positions and they are basically physically present but totally absent-minded. We spoke about this. Back to the goals that Manchester City scored against Arsenal. Bukayo Saka. Go back to the goal that Manchester City scored against Chelsea. What you have in that particular incident is that you have players physically in the area. They have come back to defend, but they cannot defend. They're just watching on. So Amadou Diallo, instead of defending the man, he simply presents himself as an extra body in the area, but it's like he's not even tracking the flight of the ball. He's just there hoping that the defenders do their job. Whereas it is their job to defend, it's a collective sport. It's a team sport. So Amadou Diallo, for me, is culpable in that first goal. So really, I thought he should have done better in that particular incident. So then when you look at the second goal, Manchester United tried to play from out of the back. There's a bit of a clumsy pass from Seny Lomans to Lenny Yoro, who has to literally drag himself to the floor to get a touch on it, to try and pass it to Casemiro before it is intercepted. Sorry. That was almost the third goal. When you look at the second goal, Lenny Yoro, what are you doing? Are you trying to block or are you trying to duck the ball? Because the two things are different. It does feel as if he bends away not to block it, but to duck the ball. And maybe I misinterpreted the situation or what his intent was. But I thought he should have done more in blocking that ball. Then you had that missed opportunity by Tanaka. Seny Lomans tries to pass the ball from out of the back. The pass to Lenny Yoro is short. Because it is short or almost being intercepted by a Leeds player, he scrambles himself to the ground and manages to get a touch on it in attempting to pass it to Casemiro. Then Tanaka steals it in the way, dribbles past Seny Lomans, but then Lisandro Martinez is the one that comes to the rescue of Man United with a very timely, very important block, because by that time it was going to be 3-0. So eventually going to halftime and we're thinking, United are still in this one. And I still believe that United could come back and win the game by 3-2, as had been the case with my prediction. So, but then the red card messes it all up, because Manchester United started the second half really, really sharp. They started by creating opportunities. And we had Benjamin Sesko have an opportunity where he almost scored, but his attempt, after deflecting, I think, off of the goalkeeper, was cleared off the lines by Justin Seda. Then they had another opportunity, and this was after when it was already 2-1 because Casemiro once again combined with Bruno Fernandes, who brought in a sumptuous cross, and Casemiro was at the back end of it to head home for his 7th goal of the season, in a season in which he also has 2 assists. He's been quite brilliant this season. And I do not think we will see a more perfect goodbye kind of performance than the kind of performances we've seen from Casemiro. Usually players give you these kinds of performances to earn a contract. But Casemiro, for him, it's goodbyes because he did reveal that he will be leaving Manchester United in the summer at the end of his 4-year contract. Whether that stance is revealed or changed in the near future, because we can never say never, he's given quite the performances. And yesterday you could see he was one of those standout Manchester United players that was really, really pushing to try and make things happen, So yeah, so at that point it's 2-1, and then you have you had an attempt. I think it was a header steal, but Dominic Calvert-Lewin had retreated to the back line, and the goalkeeper Carlo Dallo was already beaten, and he clears, hits that ball literally off the line. So Carlo Dallo twice beaten, but his defenders there, or his players, teammates there to his rescue. So United could have easily drawn that game at 2-2 or even won it 3-2. So, but I mean, because Manchester United were not clinical with their opportunities, that's how they dropped all 3 points. So, but both goalkeepers were forced into saves at different intervals of the game, and it was a really, really beautiful, game to watch. It was end-to-end kind of football, both teams going for it, attacking in the every sense of it. But yeah, it was Leeds United that carried the day with 3 gargantuan points as they continued to battle against relegation. Anyways, we'll leave that at that. Manchester United shenanigans, we'll leave them at that. And run off to the UEFA Champions League. So in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned, today action does return, and it returns with Barcelona playing away to Atletico de Madrid. Now, Pedri, where are you? Barcelona fans know that it's always a bit of a hostile environment for them to go to the Riyadh Air Stadium or the Wanda Metropolitano. And this time around, they go there with a 2-0 aggregate score. First of all, 2-0 as a first leg defeat is a result that can be overturned in the UEFA Champions League. It's not easy, but it's not doable. So that's the first encouragement. Maybe what makes it more difficult for Barcelona is the idea that they are playing away from home. Because ideally, if you're 2-0 down, you'd want the reverse fixture to be on your home ground. So Barcelona, unfortunately for them, this one is away from home against away at enemy territory. And we know that they tend to struggle winning away at the Wanda Metropolitano. But let's not forget that last weekend but one, they went to the same venue and won their game of football by 2-1. Of course, Barcelona have injuries. Players like Rafinha, Andreas Christensen, and Pau Kubasi, who got himself sent off in the first leg, are not going to be available for this action. At least, unless Rafinha is pulled out of the sick bay and given a couple of painkillers and thrown onto the turf. But Atletico de Madrid over the weekend lost to a relegation struggling Sevilla by 2-1 in a game in which they fielded a majority of players being academy players in a way. So, in other words, Atletico de Madrid had players well rested just to gear themselves up to face off with this Atletico de Madrid side. Sorry, with this Barcelona side. And first of all, what that implies is the enormous amount of respect that Atletico de Madrid have for Barcelona as an opponent. They know he's the La Liga reigning champion for a reason. They know he is leading the La Liga table for a reason. They know that he's a losing semi-finalist from last season in the UEFA Champions League. They know that he just dismissed Newcastle at the round of 16, 8-3 on aggregate score. You know, they know his capabilities. They know with him or with Barcelona, anything is possible. So in resting all those players, that in itself was a show of respect, you know. That in itself was a show of respect. So in it being a show of respect, I'd want to believe that Atletico Madrid will be hoping that it does pay off. Because when you rest players out of one game and you lose it, you hope that that sacrifice can be compensated by winning the game for which you rested those players for. And now it's time for Atletico de Madrid to call their chips for the rested players. So expect to see Johan Musso in goal, Noel Molina. Expect to see Robin Lee Nomad, Clement Lenglet, Matteo Rotegui. Expect to see Marcos Llorente, Koke, Ademola Lookman, Giuliano Simeone, Julian Alvarez, and Antoine Griezmann. Expect to see those. If it's not Antoine Griezmann and Julian Alvarez, you could see Alexander Soroth, you know? So that's the significance of the game. When at a time when Mark Pibul will be missing, David Henko has had some ankle injury, while Jan Oblak is still out. I think they will miss him. Pablo Barrios, then players like Jose Mario Gimenez and things like that. Johnny Cardoso have all been out through injury in recent times. So, to be honest, or to be fair, whereas they are missing all those good players, they'll be hoping that they can find a way to win regardless. They'll be hoping that they can find a way to win regardless. On the other side, Barcelona, we expected them to field, in my humble opinion, Joan Garcia, Gerard Martin, Ronald Araujo, Jules Koundé at right back, Joao Cancelo at left back. I would expect to see Pedri in midfield alongside Frankie de Jong. I understand Frankie de Jong is just returned from injury, but for me, his seniority, his abilities on the ball, I do not need to be even wondering whether he should start or not start. You know? I'm thinking it should be a given that he starts that game of football. So yeah, there's that. Then that's in my midfield instead of playing with Eric Garcia in midfield. I know Hansi Flick may not be the greatest of fans for Marc Casado, but Marcus Rashford, in the absence of Rafinha, to start with Fermin Lopez and Lamine Yamal and Robert Lewandowski. That's what you go with and hope for the best. That's what you go with and hope for the best, you know? So we'll just have to wait and see how Barcelona competes. Now, first of all, Barcelona need to find an early goal. By an early goal, I mean at least a goal in the first half. It may not come in the first minute, it may not come in the opening 15 minutes, but at least by the end of the first half, they must have a 1-goal difference. That's for me part of what they need. Because if you're leading at halftime by 0-0, you have all this form of encouragement to go into the second half, knowing that you're looking for that 1 goal to then start to think that there's a possibility that you win it 3-0, that you can take it into extra time and still win. Whereas both sides wouldn't have loved to play until extra time, there must be an overall winner at the end of it all. 2, they must win that midfield battle contest. That's why for me, I wanted to go with Pedri and Frankie de Jong and Fermin Lopez. However, instead of Fermin Lopez, I think I would appreciate a Dani Olmo, you know? But from some of the games that I've watched, Danny Olmo is always oftentimes coming off the bench, you know. So they need to be dominant in that midfield. They need to stretch that pitch as oftentimes as possible. They need to deny Julian Alvarez set pieces. That by that I mean free kicks close to the area. They need to keep him out of the game from being accessed by Giuliano Simeone and Ademola Lookman. So if you're Barcelona, you're looking to cut out. How do I cut out those three players? Ademola Lookman in one with Giuliano Simeone on the other, and Julian Alvarez. Once you can cut those three out, you're going to have a better fighting chance. On the other side, Atletico de Madrid, you need to do whatever it takes to cut out Lamine Yamal. Do not give him space. If you give him space, he's going to dribble past you. He must be receiving a ball as you receive with him. Go toe-to-toe with him. Deny him that space. Deny him that comfort on the ball. And that's how you succeed. But if you leave it to chance, if you try to approach it the way Inter Milan tried to do, because every time they would let him receive the ball in space and bring it to them and dribble past them. You do not want to have that against Lamine Yamal. We all know he has the skill set to dribble past players, not just one. Sometimes not just one, but 2 or 3 players. He has that. He has that confidence about himself. Now, if you can't cut him out of the game by always closing him down early on time, clipping him whenever you need to sort of clip him, nudge him in the back and things like that, go shoulder to shoulder with him, you can easily frustrate him out of the game, you know, and he may need to drift maybe a little inwards or even switch flanks. But you need to cut out Lamine Yamal. When you cut out Lamine Yamal, you've literally cut out about 40% of the danger that Barcelona possesses. Now, Marcus Rashford, his pace, you know, very good, can be good in dead ball situations. He may not always score, but he's always close. For those of you that remember the first leg, in the second half, he had a brilliant free kick that Joan Musso got his fingers to before it hit the crossbar. You know? So he's capable of coming up with some of those special moments. So you must find a way of, if you're Atletico de Madrid, of stopping Marcus Rashford and Lamine Yamal. Once you have those sorted out, then the other equation will easily balance itself out. My prediction is that Barcelona get to win this one by 2-1 and therefore get knocked out 3-2 on aggregate score. That's my prediction. And the reason as to why my gut feeling thinks that there may not be so many goals in this one is because I believe Atletico Madrid may not come out to play on the front foot. They may seek to be a little bit conservative. They may want to be reactionary. They may want to look to counter-attacking football, knowing that it is Barcelona that ought to be looking for that first goal. So you wait for Barcelona to come for the attack, win the ball back, go long into the channels, into the spaces, try and find Ademola Lookman, find Simeone or Anton Griezmann, and take things off from there. So yeah, that's the expectation about that game. So quickly, let's move away from Barcelona versus before we move away from Barcelona versus Atletico. Like I said, 2-1, Barcelona beat Atletico de Madrid. That was in the reverse fixture. The first leg of the Spanish La Liga this season, still Barcelona won, 3-1. Barcelona beat Atletico Madrid by 3-0 in the reverse fixture of the Copa del Rey semi-finals, but nonetheless were knocked out by the same side who had already beaten them by 4-0 in as far as the first leg was concerned. So you could see that Barcelona slightly fell short in their remontada in the Copa del Rey. Now, the Champions League is a different beast. So you ought to bear that in mind. So then last season, still the two sides I think met at the semi-finals of the Copa del Rey, and Barcelona won the tie by a 0-0 in away at the Wanda Metropolitano, but the first leg had ended in a 4-4 draw. Then Barcelona themselves had managed to beat Inter Milan 4-2 away at the Wanda Metropolitano. Released the reverse fixture, they had lost by 2-1 earlier on in the season. So you can see that Barcelona go to a familiar territory, one where they may not almost always win, but they have won before, and they've won there in their last three, in 2 of their last 3 visits, So it gives you that bit of encouragement about this Barcelona side, because if they went there in the Copa del Rey and won, so by 0-0, went away and won 4-2 in the Spanish La Liga, went away and won 2-1 in the Spanish La Liga this season, it gives you confidence. It gives you quite the confidence if you're a Barcelona fan going into this one. It will be as nervous as hell. It will be nervous as hell, Anyways, let's cross over back to the UK, where Liverpool will be hosting Paris Saint-Germain. Paris Saint-Germain are the reigning champions of the UEFA Champions League. Now, I do not have much conviction that PSG will defend their crown in terms of winning back-to-back UEFA Champions League titles. Only Real Madrid have done it in recent history. But also, you ought to remember that first-timers tend to take a bit of time before winning it again. Look at Pep Guardiola with Manchester City. In 10 years, he's only won it once. During those 10 years, he's played 2 finals. First in 2021 and in 2023. So you ought to keep that in mind. So now, PSG are a very, very good team. And they do not have so many injuries because Fabian Ruiz is one of their key players that they've missed for quite some time this season. But nonetheless, I do not think it's phased them. I don't think it has phased them one bit. In any case, you have a decent player in Warren Zaire-Emery, and we all saw him in the first day. He was quite the thorn in the foot for that Liverpool side. Then, of course, in addition to that, you have Vitinha, a man that reminds you of N'Golo Kante. He never stops running. He's always popping up in the right areas. And then in addition to him, you have Joao Neves. The way PSG are flexible in their play feels like a revolving door. That players as though swap not positions, but responsibility. That's while you think Ousmane Dembele is starting centrally, it is Kivicha Kvaratskhelia. I don't know. Apologies on the internet glitch. Yes. My subscription auto-renewed during the course of this podcast. So that's why we've been having those glitches. But anyways, again, PSG, you'll have Achraf Hakimi playing as the winger. You'd have the wingers literally absent. Why? Because they've gone, and by the way, you'll find the left winger and the right winger having an interplay on the left or the right wing. And you're thinking to yourself, are you not supposed to be the other side? No. Why? Because Achraf Hakimi is probably covering the other side, or Nuno Mendes, or Joao Neves has chipped in. So they really, really play well in terms of how they keep switching positions. And in switching positions, they pull away Liverpool defenders. So if you've been tasked to, let's say, mark Ousmane Dembele, he's going to be receiving that ball deep in midfield. He's going to be drifting to the right. He's going to be drifting to the left. So you must be smart about it. How you go about it when it comes to man marking. What is the future of Ugandan football team? Let's discuss that in a bit. Okay, so that's what makes PSG really, really difficult. We know that they won the first leg by by 2 goals to nil, but it could have been more had it not been for Georgie Mamadashvili and Usman Dembele's bad day in office. Remember, Usman Dembele, I think, scored that goal that restored parity in the contest over 2 legs last season at the round of 16. That was at Anfield before game went into extra time and eventually penalties. So you have that beautiful team: Goncalo Ramos, Lucas Hernandez, Pedro Fernandez, Seni Mayuru, Bradley Bacola. All those are players that PSG can summon are off of the bench that are really, really good to get things going. Should it not be the best display, So William Pacha and Marquinhos are going to be up again once again against Hugo Ekitike, who had a very, very poor performance in the first leg. They'll be up against, I don't know if Mohamed Salah will start this one. You do suspect he could. He did score in the weekend against Fulham. Flanvitz could be among those. Okay. One man like Fabian, kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel. I think in my opinion, one man like Fabian, it is your first time here on the broadcast. So, Gravenberch, McAllister, and Soboslai. Now, these are very, very good players. But Liverpool might need to find a solution of how they play only two of those, and then accommodate Flanvitz where he ordinarily has to play in the number 10 pocket, as opposed to being coming off the left wing, So they must think about that. On the other side, you have a goalkeeper in Georgie Mamadashvili. You have Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahim Konate, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kakes. Those could be the players that start, If something changes, then maybe you could say Jeremy Frimpong sits it out and they start with Joe Gomez. I do not think he will try to play back five like he did away at Parc des Princes. I do not envision it that way, but nonetheless, it is still a possibility. He was dictate terms. So for Flanvitz, he needs to step up. He needs to step up and say, look, guys, it's been almost an entire season. Now is the time for me to come good. Because like I said, moments like this in the UEFA Champions League, individual brilliancy is going to come into play. You need the individual brilliance. You need a player that is going to pick himself up and take matters into his own hands and say, I'm going to decide this tie. I'm going to break it or make it, So oftentimes, for example, I think against Chelsea, for PSG, that player was Kivica Kvaratskhelia. Yes, he may have come off the bench in the first leg, but oh my, what a revelation Kivica Kvaratskhelia is, So you have that. Then also, so the question is, if it is going to be Kivica Kvaratskhelia or Ousmane Dembele or Desiree Doué that sort of stands tall on the PSG side, who is going to stand tall on the Liverpool side? Mohamed Salah has not shown us thus far this season that he is capable of being the old Mohamed Salah that gets to stand up. Is it going to be the captain Virgil van Dijk? You never know, because the defenders and the goalkeeper can keep you in a tie with their own heroics. So the question is going to be, who will take the responsibility for Liverpool? Can Liverpool give us a semblance of the performance that they had against Galatasaray in the reverse fixture at the round of 16? It was such a good performance. Are they capable of replicating it? Are they capable of giving it to us again? We'll have to wait and see. So that midfield contest between Vitinha, João Neves, and Warren Zaire-Emery is going to be critical in deciding who wins the tie, because McAllister, Ryan Gravenberch, and Dominic Soboslai will need to pull off donkey's work. Maybe you try and invite PSG into the press and go long into the channels for Mohamed Salah to be running at them, because oftentimes you have Achraf Hakimi and Nuno Mendes equally following up or inverting in midfield. They normally go with their attackers at different paces. But if you play those balls in the channels, maybe. If you go for the long balls, maybe. Remember how Arsenal beat Bayern Munich? They would invite them for the press, and then they would switch it and go long. You know? So Virgil van Dijk must be willing to give us that long pass. He has it in his armor. He can put on quite the execution. Georgi Mamadashvili, I've not seen him do it well enough to appreciate him the way Alson Ramsey-Specker does it. So you're going to need that to cut out the middle noise, because PSG, when it comes to dominating that midfield, I do not think there's many teams that would go toe-to-toe with them, you know? So Liverpool ought to remember that. So for PSG, Mohamed Salah may not be the old Mohamed Salah, but he's no less a lethal weapon, because while he struggled to score goals, he can still provide them, as we saw against Galatasaray. So over the weekend, he showed us he can still score them. But then also you have Salah, I think, being fired up. Every game at Anfield is a game of him bidding farewell to those Liverpool fans. So anything he can offer them is going to be really, really appreciated. I went for a 2-2 draw in this one, in normal time. I'll stick by that. A 2-2 draw. Could be wrong, I could be right, but that's what my instincts tell me. That both teams will go for it, but unfortunately, Liverpool will fall short of making it through, you know? So yeah, that's it from there. Okay, so that's the UEFA Champions League. Like I said, action will continue tomorrow with Arsenal at home against Sporting CP, Bayern Munich at home against Real Madrid. We'll discuss those games tomorrow. Yeah, we'll discuss those games tomorrow. So Adash says, what is the future of Uganda, the Uganda football team? Uganda football team, the future I think will be bright. Government has committed to giving the Federation of Uganda Football Associations some money, I think to the tune or the excess of 1.5 billion shillings, to help them in the naturalization of players. By naturalization, we mean players who have been born overseas, have lived their life overseas, but have a link to Uganda. One of their parents is a Ugandan, either the mother or the father. So they try to entice those players into coming to represent Uganda. That's how we got in players like Elio Kapuradosi, Toby Sebik, Uguchukwe, and a couple of others. So this time around, they are after... this time around, they're going to be after players like Divine Mukasa, who plays for Manchester City, currently away on loan to Leicester City. They'll be scouting some of those players and see if they can convince them that coming to play or to represent the Uganda Cranes is worth every pinch or every salt. So it will be up to the Federation of Ugandan Football Associations to convince them that, look here, we are building a project. We are going to be hosting AFCON come 2027, and therefore we need you. You're going to be one of the key starters. Because usually players playing from that side are oftentimes more fit. They are oftentimes have the composure, as opposed to some of our own stars that play domestically, you know. So that's the future of the Uganda team. We will look forward to, to see what it becomes or what becomes of it. Okay, I'm moving away quickly. Let's look at some other emerging reports as of this morning sport. I told you about Christian Romero. Yes, his season is as good as done. Why? Because apparently he ruptured his one of his ligaments in his knee, and his World Cup appearance has been put into serious doubts, and it's not good because all throughout the season, players are always, especially in a World Cup year or in a year where you have AFCON, where you have the Euros, they play waiting, hoping to be summoned by their respective national teams to make it and play, and represent their country and play. So for Christian Romero, as hot-headed as he can be or as he is, you sort of feel for him. You feel for him that his season is ended prematurely, especially at a time when Tottenham Hotspur are trying to fight against relegation. But it is what it is. It is what it is. You know, it is very unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Okay. Now, quickly to digress a bit back about about Manchester United. Michael Carrick said you can see that the two games in a row we've had those decisions go against us. Then Bruno Fernandes said, I do not talk about the referee. It will, if I talk about the referee, I'll be in big trouble. I think he chooses to borrow the words of, was it Jose Mourinho or Pep Guardiola who said them? That if I talk, I'll be in big trouble. So, and for me, Bruno Fernandes also said the rules are different for everyone, applied different for everyone. The difference in the yellow cards, you can also see it. It's better that I don't say anything. That's when he went on to make the addition that I don't talk about the referee. If I talk about the referee, I'll be in big trouble. So guys, in case you're receiving any interruption, it has started raining quite heavily on the outside here in Uganda. Looks like our rainy season goes on, especially at the time when we're struggling for fuel, you know. But it's another day, another downpour, just like yesterday. But let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best. So yeah, like I said, some United sections will feel hard done by for some of the decisions that have not gone their way in the last two games. I don't think that in yesterday's game it was the lack of those decisions or that were not made in their favor that decided the tie. I think United need to stand up and take responsibility in terms of winning their games. I mean, they had 23 days preparing for this particular fixture. But the way Leeds were dominant in that first half, the way Leeds were really good in that first half, you would not think that Man United have had 23 days to prepare for this single fixture. Like Rick says, hi bro, hi like Rick, good to have you on the podcast. So for me, there is no excuse for Manchester United. They should have done better. They ought to have done better in terms of winning that game. They just did not compete well enough, especially in the opening 45 minutes. In the second half, they were much better. They were more improved. Unfortunately, they then considered a red card, which for me is a red card because it's a violent act by Lisandro Martinez. So, guys, you'll spare me the struggle of competing with the rain in submitting or making the submission. And I wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much, Sino Bueno, Pedri, Lord's Rivals, Adash, one man like Fabian, and Lick Rek for having joined us for this morning's broadcast. It's always a pleasure to see you around. Let me go work on that video that I promised you about Thomas Partey that is going to be premiering in a few. Otherwise, it's been such a fruitful discussion this beautiful morning. allow me to, hi bro, which club should I support? In which league? Because that's your prerogative. Do you mean the Premier League, in the Spanish La Liga, in the Italian Serie A, in the French League One, in the German Bundesliga, or one overall? That's up to you, basically. One, for me, first of all, I'm a football fan and enthusiast, and consequently, I support Arsenal, I support Real Madrid, the Uganda Cranes, the Brazil national team, and usually the underdog. So I just enjoy a beautiful game. So I cannot, it's hard for me to say, go and support this team, because you must feel a certain way about that team to align with it. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. Have a blessed day, guys. We'll link up again tonight for the UEFA Champions League action. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.